Nanook is an important film for anthropologists, not because it's good anthropology or not because it's good ethnography, but because it's the first time we see on film somebody who knows a community well engaging with it for a sustained period of time.
Our relationship with Nanook of the North started about 10 years ago, maybe a bit more. When we started to use it in the terms of using it as a visual structure to work with, there are obvious emotive elements and the characters, and it does draw you into the characters and the personalities of the Inuits that are featured within the film.
I came to the film from film studies, actually not an anthropological background, and it's often cited as the kind of father of documentary.
And it was a time when we were exploring a lot of, in terms of performance and improvisation, and we were doing kind of durational performances of 12 hours and restricting ourselves in different ways and exploring different ways of creating improvised music.
What we have with Flaherty is a sustained engagement of up to a decade with these communities while he was a prospector and explorer. And so when he comes to start filming, he has a very strong sense of who these people are, how their lives, not so much were lived at the time, but how they were lived, as he thought anyway, traditionally.
I think it's compelling really for its very physical representation. The actors and the communities involved in the making of the film have developed a significant relationship to Nanook as a film over the years, and that's why it's important to me.
But he was persuaded, having screened a rough print of the film several times, that what he found interesting about the Arctic and about the Inuit people he met there, he wasn't conveying that interest to his audiences. So he obtained funding from a French fur company and backing from Pathé, the French newsreel company, and went off just to make a film. No intention of mining, no intention of exploration. And this is the film he came back with.
What we're trying to do is engage with lots of different creative types, like Dead Rat Orchestra and all sorts of artists, in order to make the collections speak to new people. It's a really, really useful film to consider, and at the Pit Rivers we have lots of objects that relate to the Arctic that were collected at a similar time to when the movie was filmed.
I think we almost see it as like a fourth member of the group, in that we'd respond to certain things that are going on, and even gestures that are happening in the way that would help form our responses.
I think the landscapes present in filmic terms are very striking. The situations of extremity that we see in the narrative are perhaps examples for people if they are looking perhaps for a different way of living.
But I think what Nanook as a film today can help us do is rethink those relationships, think what it is we might find problematic in the film, or rethink what we might find appealing in the film. It's a very romantic film. There's a lot of sort of invitations to sensory engagement, the barren, sort of windswept landscapes, etc., the dogs shivering in the cold. There's a great deal of embodied response one can have towards the film. And it's interesting to see how some ideas that are very recent or very of the moment in anthropological thinking, as well as other sort of social science and humanities thinking about, as it were, being human in the world, are in some senses prefigured in this film. It does allow access to a sensory universe.
This is a film made nearly 100 years ago, which over time people have readjusted their vision of it and reappraised it in different ways. And I think that we never create a definitive soundtrack.
By putting a new soundtrack to a documentary such as Nanook, we're inviting a whole new audience to engage with the museum and engage with the idea of anthropology, ethnography and also film studies. We wouldn't necessarily reach the audiences that are going to come along to an event like this just by opening the doors of the Pit Rivers, so that's a really important outcome for us.
Recovering that history is an important aspect of Nanook, and that also has to do perhaps with recovering the sound and the sonic history in a way.
Flaherty was not making this film for me as an anthropologist or my then sort of predecessors. He was making it very much as a commercial venture, and I think we have to see it in that light.
For us, I'd say there's two elements. There's the fact that we revisit it periodically, and that allows it for it to continually change. It means the film itself is never in a finished state. It's continually evolving as we react to it, as our layers of knowledge change. We're able to react to it in different ways, and also even through just being here today, doing the sound check and just practicing a few parts, different elements come to the surface.
Really fascinating, I think, to watch it, and I think also the discussion afterwards was particularly interesting.
I found it like engaging and serene and all sorts of other things. I think I didn't know the images, I didn't know the music, and I felt like they came together.
I thought it was brilliant. Yeah, it was. It's a nice space to see something that relates to a museum, but outside. It's good to have the idea of it in your head whilst you're watching that film with the band, and it's an interesting thing to hold in the back of your head whilst watching it.
I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was. This is the first time I'd seen the film, so it was kind of interesting coming in and having a soundtrack as well. I thought it was nice that I could, engage in the film, but with the soundtrack added in as well as kind of an extra layer to the performance.
Well, I like it very much, and really impressive. And the scenes, how old they are and how the guys managed to do that so many years ago, and how they, what they made nowadays of this thing that was filmed. Well, I don't know, I was really impressed.
As an experience, the projection of it, the shared viewing of it, and the completion of that element of the film by it being a shared experience as well, and yeah, that was a really nice moment to think about that.